You're tuned into the Zealous Podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder, and this week I've got Angelo Gingerelli with me. He's a strength conditioning coach at Seton Hall for the Pirates, but he's also a two-time author with a book coming out called The Next 4 Years, all about getting your kids ready from high school into college sports. Before we get underway, remember we've got continuing education workshops on my website at rockysnyder.com. You can also sign up for in-person workshops, like one that's coming up November 3rd in Capitola, California. It'll be posture-based soft tissue mobilization workshop, helping people realign their posture through the use of foam rolling, as well as strategies to deal with chronic issues like low back, sciatica, and a whole bunch of others. If you want more information, just go to rockysnyder.com. And when you're thinking about education, you may also want to consider Seton College. SetonCollege.com has Masters of Science programs in applied sports, biomechanics and movement science, applied sport and exercise psychology. They've got programs in performance coaching as well as sports injuries and return to performance management. Just go to SetonCollege.com, and if you enter RS10, you get 10% off tuition today. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Rocky_Snyder. Click the subscribe button and enjoy the show.
Angelo, welcome back. You know, I always like having friends come back on the podcast, and it's even better when they come out with a book, so we can talk about that a little bit. But first, hey, Angelo, welcome back, brother.
Appreciate it, Rocky, man. Hey, I listened to probably 90% of your episodes. I was lucky enough to be on one over 2 years ago now because time just flies. But I'm so amped to be back here, man. I think there's a lot of great podcasts out there. A lot of people in our game put out great content. You're in the top 3 to 5 easy, and I've been saying that since 2022, and you have not let me down with an episode yet. So I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, it's a project of passion, I guess you'd say, and you make it easy. So for the listening audience, if you go back to the archives, Angelo Gingerelli, he's been on, like he said, a couple of years ago, talking about one book that he came out with while working at Seton Hall, while also being the NSCA state director for New Jersey and coordinating some amazing state clinics, which I've been honored to be a presenter at a couple of years ago. And it's just, it's amazing what you do. And I don't know how you have the time to get it all in, but you've got at least 9 sports. Is that right, that you oversee at Seton Hall?
Yeah, something like that, right about 8 or 9, something there.
Man, and on top of that, you got time to raise a family, write a book, and be the state director. So anybody out there listening that may be a member of the NSCA, you don't think you have much to offer? Well, I'm going to argue that point, and you got time to become a state director in your area. So, but first of all, what's been going on since we last met?
Okay, so I'm starting my 20th year at Seton Hall University, which, as we know from listening to your show, that is an eternity in college athletics. That's a long time in a regular job. In college sports, it's 2 lifetimes, basically. But later, we talked about the air a little bit. I found the spot that works, right? I found it's close to the part of the country I want to live in. I have the sports I work with don't really require travel. I get to teach some classes. I get to be the state director of the NSCA, get to do my daughter's softball games and dance competitions, 99.9% of the time, which is something I really enjoy. And then the idea for the second book was that, 20 years of this in one place, the one common is no matter what sport I've been with, no matter how high level the recruiting class is, everybody comes in unprepared for college athletics. And there's a bunch of reasons for that I hope we'll get to talk about today. But I wanted to write the guidebook for if you're lucky enough to sign an NLI and play in college, what do you do the next day? What do you do to get ready, not get buried that first workout and not be injured in the training room and go and contribute right away? Because I feel like a lot of strength coaches, they want to be the big, strong, tough guy that makes you get quit or be the straw that broke the camel's back. My attitude is I want to make the camel's back stronger. I want every single kid to come in, have a great experience, physically, mentally, emotionally, and be a part of that learning process the 4 years during college. And I think what we're learning, we've been saying for decades, there's no off season, right? There definitely is no off season, but that you can argue that kind of quote unquote off season between high school and college is one of the most important of your life, right? You've demonstrated how good you are. You've demonstrated your skill set, that you got recruited, and now you're getting a scholarship to play. But now this is a whole nother level when you get there. And just 99% of people I deal with have been unprepared through no fault of their own. The information is not out there of how to prepare. So I want to try to get that info out there and make that transition a little bit smoother for as many people as I can.
I love it. Okay, so listening audience, the title of the book is called The Next 4 Years: Compete, Win, and Thrive in College Sports. And it's just come out, right? It's being released right now, isn't it?
Right, we're doing the pre-order October 1st. So by the time this airs, pre-order links will be up, and then it'll be out on Amazon on November 1st.
All right. So oh, and by the way, you're also a stand-up comedian, which I have yet. I want to see you on stage, brother. At least I need to get some clips, and maybe we can throw them into this podcast. Who knows?
I mean, the clips are easy. The real answer is you got to get me booked out in California, man. I'll be out there in a second. I won't turn that down. I think it's fair because I brought you out to Jersey to speak at our state clinic a couple years ago, right? You got to meet at the Comedy Store next, and we'll call it even.
Okay, all right. The Comedy Store it is. I'll see what I can do on that. So you've got a whole bunch of topics to cover, and there's a whole bunch of new things, agendas, if you will, to deal with high school athletes transitioning to college, like NIL, and different deals. I mean, I was just on a university campus working with some athletes, and they are they're wealthier than I am. I mean, many of them have struck some amazing sponsorship deals, and they're on the road to, say, the NBA or WNBA. So you've got that to contend with. But how about this? Well, why don't we just go, if you don't mind, we'll go through a few topics that you cover in the book, like I don't know, the recruiting process.
Sounds great. So I think one thing, if you listen to people in our profession, like Eric Cressy on your episode spoke about it, Andrew Hootie spoke about it the last episode that aired. The high school, the youth sports to high school model, we all kind of agree is broken, right? There's too much emphasis in baseball, for example, and throwing too hard at too early of an age, right? In basketball, all the emphasis is on playing as many AAU games as possible and doing as much work as people used to do in a 20-year NBA career by the time a kid is 16. All of that is broken. I think it needs to be fixed. My attitude is I don't think anyone's going to listen to me telling you how to fix it, right? So what I've been preaching for the last couple of years is here's how you work within that system, right? And one that I think is pretty good is once you get the scholarship or the NIL deal, you can take your foot off the gas with all of that stuff, right? You don't have to play on every travel team. You don't have to go to every showcase anymore. You can kind of get ready for that next step. So to some extent, I think signing the deal early is a huge advantage to people, right? Because you have more time to kind of let your body recover if you're talented enough to do that and get physically ready for the next level. The other side of that coin is you might, by signing early, limit where you're going because some bigger schools, better deals might be out there that you close the door to if you make this decision too early. So that's like a lot of things in college sports right now. It's a gray area, right? What I tell people all the time is learn as much as you can about your sport. Learn where the coaches and the recruiters and the scouts are and invest in the right camps, the right clinics, the right showcases to go to the schools you want to go to, right? In a sport like New Jersey, it puts out a lot of baseball players every year, right? There's certain camps there's scouts from the Yankees and the Mets and the Phillies are there. But if you're looking to play in D3, going to that camp really doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Maybe going to the camp at Montclair State or Stockton or Kane University makes sense because that's where the D3 coaches are. I think you just got to do as much research as you can. And one thing that I think people don't talk about enough in college athletics is it's a short part of your life. It's 4 years, right? Most families go through it one time. And there's so little information out there. It's an industry that works on the clients, if you will, the customers being uninformed, right? Most parents, even think about the best parents in the world, when your kid's 17, that's the first time you've gone through this. And statistically, it's going to be the last time you get to go through it. So there's not really a lot of educated people out there of how to do the process and how to make it work best for your athlete and your family. I think in the NIL deal, in the era we live in now, it's changing so quickly, right? 4 or 5 years ago, there was no way to get paid. Even if you were the face of your university, I always joke around. I used to drive around northern New Jersey, and our men's basketball players would be on buses and billboards, giant billboards right outside New York City. And these guys I knew, when I look up, I always had 2 questions for them. Number one, how are you not getting paid for this? And number two, who photoshopped that picture? You are not that handsome in real life. I didn't know we had 3 Denzel Washingtons on the team this year, but that's what the billboards would look like sometimes. But in reality, it's a better thing that these kids should get paid for what they're doing and the revenue they're generating, right? But how do you exploit that? And then if you're not a McDonald's All-American, a 5-star football recruit, Mr. Football in Alabama or Texas, if you're a volleyball player, if you're a lacrosse player, if you're a cross-country runner, how do you make that work for you, right? Because for example, Nike and Adidas might not call you if you're a college cross-country runner. Brooks might, On might, Hoka might, right? How do you make that work, and how do you deal with those smaller companies, those smaller deals that can make your life a little more comfortable while you're in college? Because we talk all the time, the accelerating rate of college admission and the cost of tuition is way too high. Anybody in the right mind will admit that. But if you're in a position to exploit your talent and make some of that money back while you're playing, you might as well do that now and change your life as far as the amount of loans you're paying back as you get older and go through your career.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just thinking, for instance, I am first generation college graduate. So just from the academic perspective, my parents had no insight, experience, information, and it was kind of just stumble along and figure it out as you go. But forget about the athletic side of things. I imagine there's a whole bunch of people whose parents have college education, have experience in that process, but weren't athletes at that level too. So there's 2 tiers there, two things to consider. And you mentioned something earlier. You say the system is broken, and because of that, the athletes are also tend to be broken. They're going for pitch count or velocity when it comes to baseball. They're going for number of games. With basketball, they're living injured. Football, forget it. Everyone plays injured, but you're starting at a very young level of mid-teens to late teenage years in high school, and you're perpetuating that with the systems that are typically in place because of this kind of broken system, like you say. So how do you transition them from, let's just take the training aspect of it, of because I don't want to labor this out too long, but a lot of high school coaches are also the strength coaches, and they aren't necessarily as well informed as they could be when it comes to strength conditioning. So they are essentially throwing bodybuilding routines onto every sport they coach. And now you come into Seton Hall, you've got you as the strength conditioning coach and performance director, so on. Like, how do you unravel it and start to weave success?
A couple of things, Rocky, man. It's a great question. The first thing I think we got to really address, I think it's not a question of coaches being uninformed. There's never been more information out there of how to train than there is right now. Agreed? There's more podcasts, more social media, more YouTube videos, more books. If you go to any bookstore, the fitness section is one of the biggest sections, right? So any high school coach could learn the basics of how to put a program together, right? I think the real question, in my opinion, might be a little controversial, is motivation, right? If you're a high school football coach, you have to win games right now. Whether or not that the kids stay healthy, get to play in college, can walk when they're 25, none of that affects your career as much as winning games right now does, right? Whereas if you're the strength coach at the high school, you're a private sector person like yourself, the strength coach at college like me, our motivations are different. Our motivation is to see athletic development and have people stay healthy. And part of my job is, I think, to educate them and help them have good lives beyond this, right? So I think as long as you have adults and careers and livelihoods tied to wins and losses, which you definitely do in high school football, you definitely do in AAU basketball, and you probably do in travel, high-level baseball, and some other sports as well, it's going to be a really big conflict of interest, right? And that's why I don't really, is that fair? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, totally.
And I think it's a weird situation where I think we all as adults got to start thinking about this more of long-term development. And our goal should be to help these young people play for as long as they possibly can, as healthy as they possibly can, at the highest level they possibly can. And if that means your best pitcher has to take a start off or come out of the game at 80 pitches instead of 120, maybe as the adult in the room, you make that decision, right? Because I think as much as we love, I'm the biggest weight room proponent in my life. I think it's been the biggest influence of my life. It's great for young people. You spend, let's say, 3 to 5 hours a week in a weight room or training setting, right? You spend 20 hours a week with your coaches if you're in college, minimum. Probably around that if you're in high school, more than that if you're a professional. So we can do everything we can to make the body as durable, as flexible, and mobile as possible. If what goes on in your playing field is basically abusive to your body, I'm not sure you can always get around that, right? And the other thing is, I think players and parents have to take a little bit of the responsibility as well, right? If we know, a 12-year-old shouldn't be playing 80 baseball games in 100 days, maybe we don't put them on every travel team. Maybe we let them sit one out. Or the thing I always say is, at Seton Hall, we're not a Power 5 school. We don't have football, but we deal with pretty good athletes for the most part, right? So everybody playing sports at Seton Hall was the top 1 or 2% of the athletes in their high school, if not their conference, correct?
Sure.
We deal with kids that can't do a push-up, can't do a pull-up, can't do a lunge, just can't do the basic motor patterns that they should be learning in high school or in elementary school health and phys ed. So I always tell parents, if you can get your son or daughter just doing the bare minimum, the basics, right? Basic joint mobility, good range of motion, good control of their body weight, good balance of proprioception, you will immediately put them at the top of their class. And then you can start worrying about things about sport-specific skills, sports specialization later. I think too many parents and youth coaches have the paradigm flipped, and they're letting kids learn how to pitch, learn how to kick a soccer ball, learn how to be a cross-country runner, whatever it might be, and not learning that just the basics, fundamentals of movement that we all know are so important, but have just kind of forgotten about the last 10, 20, 30 years.
I mean, you've been doing it long enough. Like you say, 20 years at Seton Hall. But does it still surprise you that the quality of movement for these high-level athletes is not where you would expect it to be?
Sometimes we get kids that are shockingly bad at what we call basic motor patterns, right? But for the most part, it does it because I look at the world, right? The same way you do and your listeners do. I look at it like, sports specialization has not slowed down at all in the last 20 years, right? High school phys ed programs are either not great or evaporating due to tax cuts and budget cuts, at least in my part of the country, right? And then you have, in the last 20 years, you got the phone, you got the Xbox, you got the laptop, you got the tablet. So nobody's moving on their own at all anymore. I know it's a cliche, it's been said a million times, but we keep giving kids more reason to be sedentary, right? And give them less free play, less good phys ed programs. It's unfortunately not surprising when you look at it that way, right? So I think if we could, the cliche, be the change you want to see in the world. If you got young kids now, you work with young kids. Now is the time to start teaching them this stuff and try to get them moving well, so they can become an even better softball player, lacrosse player, swimmer, whatever it might be, than if you didn't invest that time when you were younger.
So if you were to kind of pull out a little bit more from your book, Next 4 Years, when you were designing the outline, let's say that, what were the critical points that you want to get across? Like, what top 3 things when you were thinking about creating this, you're like, yeah, we've got to talk about this?
Great. Okay, so the first thing, the first one of the big chapters, we'll call it, is this. When you decide that you're going to play college sports at school X, whatever it is, after you go on the recruiting trip, after you sign your name on the dotted line, contact the strength and conditioning staff and find out what's going to be asked of you on day one when the recruiting process is over. Because in the recruiting process, we show you the chrome squat racks, we show you the plates with the school logo on it, we show you the refueling station. We don't tell you you're going to be here at 6 a.m. 4 days a week, squatting until you can't stand it anymore and doing power cleans and throwing med balls, after you already practiced for 7 hours a day before. So I think once you can really be real, contact the strength and conditioning staff. And I really believe this statement I'm about to make. If you can't get a call or an email from your strength coach, you picked the wrong college and should go somewhere else. You're going to give us 4 years of your life. I got to give you a phone call. That's really my opinion, right? And then find out, is there a conditioning test? Is there you have to run a mile in 6 minutes. You have to run the 110 test, whatever it's going to be. Do we work out early in the morning? Do we work out later at night? What supplements do we have access to on campus, right? If I've been drinking Gatorade my whole life and I sign to go to a Powerade school and Powerade upsets my stomach, well, then my quality of life just got a whole lot worse because I didn't understand and prepare for that or go to a place that gives you what I need to be successful, right? If we're an Under Armour school and I'm a cross-country runner and Under Armour shoes destroy my lower extremity when I run distance in them, I got to figure out a way to get around that, right? I got to find out what model I need, what orthotics I need. How do I make that work? If I'm going to run 12 miles a day in bad sneakers, how long is my career really going to be? So I think get as much information as you possibly can and find out what's going to be asked of you the first semester you're on campus, and then be realistic with yourself and start preparing for that. Right? Understand that if, to say, for argument's sake, the standard to play lacrosse is you run a 6-minute mile. Well, if you run an 8-minute mile and you got 4 months to prepare for that, figure out a way to start getting better at that. Right? Figure out a way to make your coaches happy and put you on the field and be happy with the person they recruited, and be good in the system by learning as much about the system before you get into it as possible. You'd be shocked how many people don't do this and don't know what they're getting into, right? The second thing I would say, the second most important thing is a chapter in the book called Work Capacity 101. And the biggest single jump from even the highest level high school sports to the lowest level college sports is increased work capacity, right? A lot of our kids, they worked hard. They had high school sports, they had travel sports, they had personal trainers, they had all these things going on. But the amount of work we do in any week at the college level is just so much higher than they're used to, right? So I would say you have a great workout on Monday, but maybe in high school you didn't work out again until Wednesday or Thursday. In college, we're going Monday and we're coming back on Tuesday, and we might come back on Wednesday, and the next day off might be Sunday, right? So I think the biggest thing you got to do is start looking at yourself realistically and build that work capacity. I think the cliche for 50 years in the fitness industry has been quality over quantity, right? Anybody in the right mind admits 5 good squats is better than 10 bad squats, right? In college, we're going to ask you for the 10 good squats. So start preparing for that quality and quantity as soon as you can when you decide you're going to be a college athlete, and get ready for that work capacity and for the amount of work you're going to do to double or triple, and just start increasing your work capacity as soon as possible, right? And the last thing I would say is think about the lifestyle changes and be smart about that. It's your first time living away from your parents. You lived in a house, now you live in a room with some kids you just met. You're eating in a dining hall. Nobody's telling you to go to bed. Nobody's telling you not to go out late in the night during the week. Just think about those lifestyle changes. And I'm the last guy to tell people not to have a good time, but I think you got to do this the right way, right? Like, for example, if we lift weights at 6 a.m. on Friday, Thursday night be in the house, go out on Friday. Just be smart about it, and don't, because you only have so much energy, so much, your body's going to take so much. At some point, you got to go to bed, you got to drink water, you got to eat good food. So just figure out ways to do that and adapt to the lifestyle without mom or dad telling you to do it. And I think that's going to give you a huge running start against the kid that didn't do it.
So, great advice. Obviously, you got 9 sports that you're overseeing. And if we just say average 20 athletes per team, we're looking at almost 200 athletes. How many of the incoming freshmen reach out to you?
I'd say 10 to 15%.
Okay, so about 20 to 30 kids?
Something like that, yeah. And it's weird, man. The kids that tend to reach out the most are as they said before, they're kind of, we have consumers that don't really understand what they're getting into, right? It's the kids who have parents. They made their older brother or sister play college sports, so their parents kind of help them navigate it, right? Or they're the product of a good strength and conditioning program, kind of like your site, where the strength coach will tell you to contact. So the strength coach will prepare them over the summer. There's a guy named Joe McAuliffe, who's like a legendary strength coach in New Jersey, right? He's been an NCAA member since 1987. He's been in a bunch of my events. Great guy. The whole reason I know him, because 10 years ago, a swimmer he trained was coming to Seton Hall. As soon as the kid signed, he emailed me and was like, hey, this kid's coming. He's a great kid. What do I need to prepare him for Seton Hall swimming, right? I sent an email back. I went to his site, watched him train the kid for a couple hours one day in the summer, and we've been great friends for the last 10 years, right? But if this young man didn't work with Coach Joe McAuliffe, he wouldn't have known to contact me ahead of time, and Joe wouldn't have been able to prepare him for a great career at Seton Hall, which happened over the last 4 years, whatever it's been. So I think that's the thing too, that if you can surround yourself with people that can advise you and give you the right advice, whether it's your parents, whether it's an aunt, uncle, cousin that played in college, or in his case, a strength coach that just knew how hard college sports is, so he reached out to me, that's definitely the way to do it.
And so with the remaining student athletes that you have coming in, and of course, it's not going to be the entire roster because you've got upperclassmen and sophomores and so on. But with the freshman class coming in, well, first of all, yeah, how many athletes for incoming freshmen do you typically have each year?
Okay, and this is a situation where it's a weird question to answer right now. If you would ask me that question 10 years ago, a quarter of every roster would be freshmen, right? Quarter
Okay.
freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, that's your 100%. So if you got 40 baseball players, you basically got 10 freshmen, 10 sophomores, 10 juniors, 10 seniors, right?
Got
The
it.
transfer error has smashed that. And now at any given time, we have half new people. So they might be, say, you got 10 freshmen, and then you got another 10 players that are transfers from either higher level schools where that didn't work out, so they came down a level, or they were at a lower level school and excelled, and they got a chance to transfer up a level, right? And both cases present challenges as a strength coach, right? So the first
Yeah.
thing is that the average age of a freshman went from, or we're calling new people, not freshmen, new people. The average age of that went from probably 18 to now it's probably 21 or 22, right? And they're with that, and body wise, Andrew Hootie talked about this a lot too, that the system is broken, so now the bodies are broken. Well, if you get a guy or a girl who's on their third college in 3 or 4 years, chances are they've had some kind of surgery, some kind of recurring issue, some kind of tendonitis, joint, something over the course of a year, right? So you went from dealing with 17, 18-year-olds, healthy teenagers, to injured, healthy adults across the board. And that changes everything about the way we have to attack training new people, right? So that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. Not, again, it's not something that's going to change anytime soon. But I think as a strength coach, you got to realize that and change your training a little bit, right? And really meet with as many people as you can. And there's never been a time where communicating with sports medicine staff has been more important, because knowing people's injury history is the injury history used to be very short because you're dealing with younger people that played sports at a lower level before they got to us, right? Now we're getting lengthy injury histories because they're older people that have been playing at a higher level for a longer period of time.
Wow. Boy, it has changed dramatically.
Yeah, it's a game changer, and so but even pre-transfer portal, I would always preach the gospel of, with particularly with your freshmen, it's got to be the most basic stuff, right? Because they're coming out of being specialized early, probably not great high school health and phys ed programs. So literally September of any year might be just teaching squats, teaching lunges, trying to get some good upper body pushes and pulls, and literally like I hate to say it, but like a dumbed down, very basic workout, right? And then you get into October, November, you start building on top of that. Maybe by December, you're doing some kind of sports specific stuff, but it really starts very basic. And now we're starting even more basic because we're going around injuries and doing a ton of modifications across the board. The one thing I think I love our profession. I'm lucky to make a career in it for as long as I have. The one thing I don't love in the last like 20 years that I've been at Seton Hall, I feel like everybody should know the foundation of strength and conditioning, right? It's basic movement patterns. It's the basic barbell lifts. It's the basics we all know are important, right? And then once you build that foundation, put the first floor on, second floor on, third floor on. I personally think the problem is you can't really sell the foundation because everybody kind of knows it. So everybody's on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube screaming about how much we need to do. You know, we're telling people you got to do a single arm chest press with a kettlebell on a physio ball, but we never did a push up, right? Or we
Yeah.
need to buy a safety squat bar and squat to an RX pad when we never did a body weight squat. So I think we got to do a little better job of teaching the basics. And I think that the next levels are all great, but we got to teach the basics and then get to the next levels. We're jumping several steps for a lot of people, which I don't think is a good thing for anybody.
Oh, I can see how you have to be remedial for sure with a lot of the athletes coming in because they're so technically geared toward their sport that it's an unknown what kind of conditioning they've been in for their high school years. So I'm also thinking about the kind of programming that you have. Yeah, I mean, if you've got 9 teams, is it evenly distributed that you've got 3 fall, 3 winter, 3 spring team? That's three spring sports, or what does that look like for you?
I'm trying to think. Baseball and softball play in the spring. They take up a lot of my time in a good way. I love working with these guys and girls. Volleyball is a fall sport, so they're playing in the fall and they're doing their heavy kind of training in the spring. And then swimming and diving kind of in the middle, right? There's college swimming goes from like October until March, basically, right? So we get like kind of like a basketball schedule, honestly. So you get a preseason with them in September and October. They start their meet stuff in November through March, and we get a little bit of a break, and then we go really hard in that postseason of like April and May, and then some of them will stay around for the summer. So yeah, it's a pretty heavy workload, particularly for me in the fall. It's a little bit rougher than other times of the year. For me, to be honest, once baseball and softball start traveling, we're lifting a lot less, right? So they're kind of just out of my way a little bit. And then volleyball is doing a lot more stuff for me. But I think if you're in a college or even a high school strength and conditioning setting, I think that the best thing about it is you get to work with different populations, different athletes, different personalities. My previous job was at the Pittsburgh Pirates. I was at the Pittsburgh Pirates for a season, and I love baseball. I like training baseball players, I like watching baseball. I love baseball, but I really didn't like just being around the same thing day after day after day. Whereas in the college setting, at 6 o'clock, I got baseball guys in, and I can say this because they're just like me when I was their age. They're just Jersey Guido meatheads that want to get jacked. And we got EDM music playing, and it's that, right? And then at 7 o'clock, we got tennis players, and it's completely different, right? And I think that's a good thing. I've become a much better coach, much better practitioner by being around so many different populations for so long than if I would have just specialized in football players or just basketball or whatever.
There's a whole bunch of like high school recruitment organizations that reach out to families that say, "Hey, we'll help you put together sizzle reels, game footage. We'll put together a nice recruitment package for you, and we will solicit your young athlete, to all these different organizations." I could see that being a great place that your book could fit into, but um, how does how does that work? Do you get contacted by all of these types of recruitment organizations? Is this something that's kind of off to the side that you get a call every now and then, or what's it like?
Honestly, man, it really didn't happen a lot. And then now that I post about the book online, I have a couple meetings this week with similar services, right? And my argument is, if you're going to provide everything you said that's super important, the sizzle reel, the contact info, what camps to go to, I feel like this should be a part of it. I feel like this should definitely be a part of it, because I think a lot of those companies have a business model where once you sign the deal, we post about it, and then you're on your own, right? So I think what this book provides is now you're going to play sports at UCLA, whatever it is. We helped you get there, and now we're going to help you excel once you get there. So again, I see a natural synergy there. I don't think it's really been there a whole lot before, but I want to be a piece of that puzzle. And if these companies are helping kids get better looks, better deals, get more eyes on them, well, let's help them excel once they get there. And I think I could definitely be a part of that.
So you mentioned the dining commons, how they're going to be living a completely different lifestyle once they leave home. They're on their own. They're going to be eating at a dining common. So in regards to nutritional guidance and support, I know you covered a little bit in the book, but give me your 411 on that.
The first thing, figure out to make it technical, your energy expenditure is going to be, right? Figure out basically how much, we'll make it easy for college athletes, not say calories, how much food and beverage you need in a day to get through whatever you're being asked to do, right? Then look at the practical side of the dining hall opens and closes during these hours. I have this option for supplements, whatever it is, and figure out as early as you can how you have to make that work around your schedule, right? So, for example, if you know you have practice until 4, and then you got to rush to class at 4, and then you have class till 6, and 6 the dining hall is closed. Once you know that, think ahead, right? Don't go too much without eating dinner. Figure out how, okay, well, I can DoorDash this night if I budget my money right, budget my time. There's a sub place right off campus that's got like pretty decent cold cuts and options like that. But just kind of figure out your surroundings and be realistic about it, right? The idea of you're only eating grilled chicken and rice and broccoli the whole time you're in college is kind of silly, right? But if you don't think about it at all, it's going to turn into pizza, burgers, fast food all the time, because the healthy options might not work the best for your schedule. So if you can't do lunch in the dining hall, can you grab a bag and take something out after breakfast so you can eat a decent lunch before you go to practice? I mean, the biggest thing is knowing the lay of the land, getting that information, and plugging and playing as best you can around that, right? I think the one thing I'll say it's different too in college than say 20 years ago is we deal with so many kids with food allergies, food sensitivities, no gluten. You can argue forever why that's a thing, but that's never been more of an issue than now, right? So if you know you're gluten intolerant, you know you're lactose intolerant, whatever it is, start figuring out early and figure out, how do I get enough food and calories in around my training schedule and the meal plan schedule where I can stay alert and energetic and not starving and beat down every day at the end of the day because I didn't get enough calories in or enough water or drinks in, right?
Yeah, so there's like restaurants that have little purple hearts or something next to menu item selections that are like, this is the healthy selection or the healthier, lower calorie, low sugar, whatever the parameters are. Do the dining commons at Seton Hall, I mean, not to put you guys on a spot or anything, do you have some type of pathway for the young, uninformed?
Yeah, it's not great, to be honest. It was kind of like you said, there's kind of like a hard healthy option, like there's like a leaf option next to the vegan stuff, which I think is good. I think it's a pretty good roadmap, right? But the other thing I think you got to think too, if you're a college athlete and you're burning 1 million calories a day, maybe that doesn't apply to you, right? Like for example, fettuccine alfredo, not a great snack if you sit in your house, not a great dinner if you sit in your house all day. If you ran a marathon that day or you're going to run a marathon the next day, maybe that's a decent dinner, right? So you got to think outside the box a little bit. I think most of the things we push out there as far as nutrition information isn't necessarily applicable to people that exercise and move at this activity level. So kind of think about that. One thing I put together in a book, which I've been doing at this lecture for a long time, and again, I say this in the book very clearly. I have no formal training in nutrition whatsoever, just my experience. So I am not an expert by any means in this part of our profession. But I put a bunch of lists together of always, sometimes, and rarely, right? So for example, take hydration. The only liquid we need all the time is water, okay? Sometimes I put your Gatorades, your juices, your stuff like that, right? A lot of calories, a lot of sugar. But if you're training like a lunatic, that might be a good option that day. And then rarely you put like your soda, your fruit punches, your process, your kind of fake fruit drinks, your alcohol. I put in that category for 21 and choose to do that. But again, I do it for a lot of different categories of foods. Where if you just got to think quickly, these are things I could eat every day and be healthy. These are things I got to limit to maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and these are things I should save for maybe weekends or celebrations or stuff like that. Like cake is not a great food, but if it's your mom's birthday, maybe have a piece of cake.
Oh, that's a great way to sort things out. Actually, I really like that. And so with that, do you guys have a team nutritionist? Do you have somebody on staff that helps guide them in combination with your performance staff?
Yeah, we work with our campus dining group. So they supply our fueling station and they supply all the food on campus. They've been pretty good to work with as far as giving us good stuff and giving us pretty good information. And then we outsource kids that have, let's say, eating disorders or specific questions to train nutritionists that deal with that on the outside. Big picture wise, everybody we deal with. And I think if you're in a college setting, that's kind of the way to do it because that's you supplying the food anyway. If you bring it, you're the strength coach, there's the dining hall, and then if you're in a third entity, you're kind of creating redundancy you probably don't need to create because it's all going to go back to what we can pay for and what the person with the contract to provide food for the campus is able to provide. So if you can go right to them, I think you cut the middleman out and probably provide a better service for everybody that way.
Okay, so over the course of your experience at Seton Hall, you've already mentioned the low-level movement quality or literacy, shall we say, with a lot of the athletes coming in. What other things have made you go, what the heck? Scratching your head going, I had no idea I was going to have to deal with this when these athletes have come through my door.
Okay, I would say number one, like you said, is moving quality and just lack of moving well. Number two is definitely work capacity. I talked about it a lot like 10, 15 minutes ago. But the idea that these kids, men and women, they just look like specimens. They look like they walked out of an Under Armour ad, and a day or two into the training in their fall off season, they're just done. They're exhausted. They're physically, mentally, mostly had it. And I think that's just a lack of preparation. And most kids eventually get it. They eventually figure out how to recover, how to sleep, how to be ready day after day after day. But the amount of work we're doing in any week is just so high. It's really a shock to their system to perform at that level day after day after day, right?
Yeah.
And then those are two really big ones. Then eventually you deal with the lifestyle questions, right? Like we're training, I'm as serious and intense as any strength coach in the country. But when we're done, if you got to come to my office and tell me your dad's sick, so you got to go home or you're going to fail a test, whatever, got to change your major, I'll talk to you about that all day. I feel like that's part of my job. And if you're coming with something that's needs an expert, I got to refer you to an expert. But if it's within my realm to help you, I'm going to try to do that. And I think the lifestyle is just so different for these kids. And I'm not sure you really prepare for that, but just knowing that You're going to be put in a different social circle than you were before, and give it time and make the right friends and make the right decisions. You'll be okay over time. But a lot of kids get homesick real quick, and just kind of don't want to throw in the towel early. And I think I'd give it at least a semester, if not two, to figure out if it's for you or not.
So in terms of work capacity, like are we talking mainly aerobic conditioning, or are we just talking about the volume of load? Are we talking about, you also mentioned like recovery and lifestyle, but when they're getting gas, what's that all about?
It's a little bit of everything. I think it's because a lot of we're not in dark ages. We're not running like tons of miles with every team like you probably did in the 70s or 80s. Maybe we're running sprints, we're running sport specific conditioning, we're lifting in what I believe is the best manner for that sport, that age group every day. But and then I think we're giving them a decent amount of time off from practice and doing all the right things. It's just such a high level of overall activity that it becomes more than a person can handle a lot of times. So I think just be ready for that, and just kind of be ready to do it as good as you can at everything, because there's a lot we ask you.
So what's this year looking like for you? Like as we're approaching, obviously you got the book coming out. You've got a whole bunch of teams, and I'm sure you're preparing for next spring and the state clinic. But from a personal perspective, which is great experience that you can share with your athletes whose schedule is overwhelmingly full. How do you manage it all?
Okay, so first of all, I think one thing I really take pride in is I want to be an example, right? I want to be an example. Like, you were super nice on an intro of all these things I do and find a way to put this puzzle together and make it all work. I want to be an example to younger people that you could do this, right? You could be a full-time strength and conditioning coach. You could run NSCA events. You could have books out. You could have a family and be, I think, pretty good at all of them, right? My attitude is that I will say to up and coming strength coaches, and advice I give to my interns all the time is this: if you're going to keep moving, we'll call it up in our profession, it means you're going to either go to Division I football or basketball, or go to one of the four major leagues: NHL, NBA, MLB, whatever. I decided probably 10, 15 years ago, I want to be here. I like where I live. I like being around my family. I like being able to teach and do stand-up and write books and not be on the road 200 nights a year with a baseball team, right? So what I did is I kind of made a conscious decision. I'm going to stop going up and I'm going to go out. I'm going to stay here for my day job, have this job take care of my basic needs financially, health insurance wise, stuff like that. And then I'm going to have as many books out, do as many podcasts, do as many other things I possibly can to kind of make my footprint in my part of the country as big as I possibly can, right? I think you're kind of an example of that too, right? You had a successful business for 20 plus, 30 plus years, and then you decided I need to affect people outside of my gym. I want to have a podcast. I want to speak at every event I possibly can. And that's kind of where I am, because I think, nobody lives forever. So I got a little bit of time to make an impact. I want to impact as many people as I possibly can while I'm here, and just do things wider rather than narrow a lot of the times. Can I say one thing real quick for one of your recent episodes I think ties into this? You had Juan Carlos Santana on probably a month ago, right?
Yeah.
And I think if people miss that one, he was you 20 years ago in the most respectful way possible. He was a private gym owner that was at all the NSCA events, had all the books out, did all the things guys like me and you were doing 20 years ago, right? And he said two great things that I've been thinking about for a month. I just want to get your opinion on. One, he said very early on, he's 65 and can't retire yet, right? So I think if that guy doesn't have retirement money, and we all grew up looking up to him, reading his books, watching him speak, I mean, I almost asked that guy's autograph in the early 2000s if I saw him at an NSCA event, right?
Sure.
As a profession, we have to look at some things, and the NSCA has to look at some things and realize, why can't our rock stars retire? What are we doing? There's something wrong at a base level what we're doing, that a guy like him is still working at 65 by his own admission, because he's not retirement ready yet, right? And I think we got to make some changes there. But the other thing he said that hit me in the heart, man, he's talking about the social setting of the gym he was at in Miami in the 70s and 80s, right? Of everybody hanging out together. It was better than going to a bar, better than going to a nightclub. Because the week that episode aired, the week I listened to it, I was going to see Deadpool and Wolverine with my friends from high school that I met in our high school gym. So we're 30 years out of high school. I went to go see Batman Forever with them in 1995, and we went to go see Deadpool and Wolverine in 2024 together. And those friendships, those gym friendships last forever. And I don't think we're doing it anymore. I think we're dropping the ball. I think everybody got headphones in, everybody's taking selfies. And I don't hate technology, but maybe if we took the headphones out and communicated, we have some lifelong friends from the gym that we don't have anymore. And number two, I think some guys like me have wrecked it because we're don't sit down between your sets, don't talk, no rest, time your recovery, which is important. But to some extent, the kids that I grew up with and my gym friends from high school are my best friends now. And everybody's successful. Everybody's got families. Nobody went to jail. Nobody went to, any kind of drug problems, anything like that. So I think that idea of like making your friends in the athletic world and the gym world has been forgotten about the last 10, 20 years. And I don't want to see it. I want to see it go back to what he said. Because I would love, my daughter's 9 now. I'd love for her to have some gym friends. You know, and people work out together and try to get better together instead of always going to the club or going to the bar or, whatever they're doing.
No, well said. Really well said. I mean, here in our facility, we do not have, not that we don't allow it, we don't encourage having anything in headsets on. We'll play whatever crappy music you want to listen to, whatever great music, whatever it is. And you can complain about what's on. We'll try and change the channel or whatever. But please stay connected because it's huge.
I'm going to throw this out there real quick. The music that plays in a training facility starts the conversation a lot of the time, right?
True.
Like, you love this band, I hate this band, and now we're gonna have a conversation about why they're good or bad. Or I saw them last month. Oh, I was at that show, and now we're friends, right? Like I made this joke all the time. I'm a lifelong hip hop head. That's my music forever, and it will be till I die from it, right? But that Black Album by Metallica that came out when I was in high school, that was the weight room soundtrack every day. I know that by heart. Because it was just, I know what song comes after what song. I know Enter Sandman comes here. Because that was our like shared experience. And that shared experience is gone for so many people, man. I just wish it would come back.
So what does your weight room look like then at Seton Hall?
Well, we don't allow the kids to wear headphones at all. We don't allow them to have their phones. We make them leave them in their locker room, right?
Right on.
But then what I do is I purposely put groups together to train together. So, me and you are about the same height. We're going to be partners on squat day, right? But then if we're doing an upper body day and we're using dumbbells, I might go with a guy that's much taller than me kind of thing. But I put the groups together and kind of facilitate getting to know each other a little bit and being a good training partner as far as these are your teammates, right? Spot each other, help each other change the weights. If somebody's cutting reps short, you let them know about it before I have to, right? And I think that's a good, give responsibility and give them kind of agency of what they're doing and make the older kids leaders, right? Let the juniors and seniors lead the new kids around a little bit, show them this is how we do our box jumps. This is how we set up for assisted jumps, whatever it might be. And let them, that may help the older kids buying in even more. And it makes the younger kids kind of connect to the older person and work with them in a way they might not if I let all the seniors train together over here and all the freshmen train together over there.
Ah, that's great. I love it. Yeah. I'd love to take a field trip to your facility and hang out for the week because it's just a toy box.
Doors are open here.
So we're getting to the end here. I want to know for your book, The Next 4 Years, where are people going to be able to get it? Where can they find it? And if they want to reach out to you, you're always so gracious in talking to people. How can they do that too?
Okay, great. First of all, reaching out wise, the best email is angelo.gingerelli@gmail.com. If you missed that right now, just go on Seton Hall's website. I'm in the staff directory. Reach out to my Seton Hall email. That's fine. On Instagram, it's at Mr. Fifth Round, MR, the number 5, THRUND. And then I'm still using and posting to finish_strong_book, which is the Instagram account for the last book. I'm probably going to just flow it into this one and kind of keep that fan base going because they're pretty active. They like what we're doing. We're going to keep going that way. And then just book-wise, The Next 4 Years, Compete, Win, and Thrive in College Sports. Pre-order is up October 1st, comes out November 1st. And I think, if you're a strength coach and you work with kids that you want to help play in college, I'm not at all telling you how to do your job, but I think this book will give you a good foundation of what's going to be asked of them when they get to college. Maybe you change your training a little bit based on that. If you're a parent, you're an athlete, and you think college sports is the next step, this book is the blueprint of the day after you sign your NLI, your National Letter of Intent. How do you start getting ready for that first year? And then if you have the book and you have questions, please reach out to me. I'll answer anything you have.
Right on, Angelo. Okay, this has been in the back of my head, kind of non sequitur, but you brought up your Instagram handle, the Mr. Fifth Round. What's that all about?
All right, man. Probably 20 years ago, there was a show called Crank Anchors on Comedy Central. It was puppets making prank calls to people, right? And there was one call where Dane Cook, the comedian, was calling people and making them play a game show like against their will. And he would just start yelling, "I'll call you back with fifth round," and hang up on them. And me and my friends just kind of latched onto that call, and we've been laughing about it for so long. So that was right about the era when AIM Instant Messenger came out. So I had to make an AIM name in probably 2002. I was like, all right, I'm going to be Mr. Fifth Round. And that's followed me to every social media platform since Instant Messenger. So that's kind of what that is. There's no real deep meaning other than I thought it was funny. I picked an AIM handle when I was 20, and now I'm stuck with it.
Beautiful. Okay, now I know the rest of the story. That's great. Angelo, dude, this has been great. I'm so glad to connect with you anytime and every time. I just get something out of it. I appreciate you, brother. And thank you, first of all, for working with young athletes and for all the stuff that you do for the NSCA. You're just a gem. I appreciate you.
Thank you, man. You're the best. I'm so happy we got good friends. Thanks again.
You got it.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Zealous Podcast. I want to thank Angelo for coming on and sharing everything about some amazing information when it comes to preparing your kids for the college world. And don't forget, I've got that course coming up, Posture-Based Soft Tissue Mobilization. That'll be November 3rd in Capitola, California. Just go to rockysnyder.com for more information. Check out setantacollege.com. For 10% off your tuition, just enter that code RS10, and we'll see you next week.